welcome again to the Executive Room podcast, where we delve deep into the minds of remarkable executives who have shaped the business world with their ideas and actions. I'm your host, Kimberly Afonso, CEO and founder of the KA Consulting Group, and today it's an honor to have John Tota join us. So I'm really excited to have John on today, co-founder of Render, a digital likeness solutions provider helping leaders communicate at scale with AI-powered video avatars and voice clones. He's a former screenwriter turned tech entrepreneur, and he founded a few companies in the past few decades, including Edulence in 2002 and Knowledge Link, which was one of the first video training platforms, which was later acquired in 2020. So through his production company, Syntax and Motion, John has produced podcast courses, interactive videos for thought leaders, and more. Today, he's redefining how executives connect with audiences and bringing human presence to the digital space. So great. Thanks again for being on, John. And you've had a really unique career spanning screenwriting, digital learning, and now AI-driven avatars, which will definitely be one of the focuses of our episode. I was super excited to have you on to discuss these avatars, as it's something really new in our sector. So you've been creating these since 2020, well before most people had seen the technology. So just to get us started, can you explain the concept of digital likeness for those who don't really know? And how did your early work with these tools lead to the Render platform that you run today?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on, Kimberly. I appreciate everything you're doing with your show, and I'm glad to be here and sharing my story with your audience. So we got into, first, digital likeness. We kind of have coined that term to a certain extent, and that kind of captures exactly what we do. When we talk about digital likeness, it's the combination of a video avatar and your voice clone. And those avatars and voice clone combinations, they could be any form. They could be a cartoon character with your voice. They could be a full photorealistic version of an avatar, which is what we do. But really for us, essentially, it is any representation of you and your physical likeness online that you can leverage and use in your business. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. You'll hear avatars thrown around in lots of different ways, but that's kind of what we think of as a digital likeness. And yeah, for us, we started early on in this space. Our first avatars, we really specialized in not stock avatars that have really become very popular in the learning and development space, but because of who our client base is and has always been, we really focused on cloning unique people, creating their digital likeness, their digital twin, if you will, and then teaching them ways that they could use that to be in more places at once. And certainly the technology wasn't great in the beginning. We're going to show some samples later, but it took a while for the tech to catch up. But today it's quite amazing now how far it's come and how lifelike these avatars and voice clones have really become.
And I'd love to hear, John, a little bit more about, I know when we were speaking before this episode, you mentioned a lot that avatars bring personality back to the way we can interact online, especially on websites, scheduling tools, online forums. Why do you think avatars are so powerful, and where do you predict that avatars will be used even more in the coming years?
Yeah, so for us, I think we got into this space so early that at the beginning, like if you go back to 2020 when people were just kind of seeing avatars like this, just seeing a stock avatar do what it could do was really amazing. When we started cloning people, and now we've cloned almost 1,000 unique personalities, made lots of looks and avatars for those people, but along the way, like we've really seen, I guess, the novelty wear off a bit in just like being amazed that you could do this. And so for us, it had always been, where's the value? Like, why would you do this? Why would it just not be like a fun parlor trick that you want to show people to get laughs and to see what you can do? And for us, it was really this idea that there's so many things we do in our online businesses today, and whether it's lead capture through your website or online scheduling or payment processing, online courses, and even podcast shows like we're doing here, where it's all very digital and automated. And what we thought about is that, for decades now, people have replaced the individual emails that they send every day with email marketing. And I could say pretty much everyone has a handful of newsletters that, even though that person doesn't physically send every single one of those, they love that newsletter and they really value the content. And so we thought, you should be able to do that same thing with video at this point. And if the message is truly from me and the content is great, it doesn't matter if I sat down and captured that video on my phone or my computer and sent it to you, or if it's done with my digital likeness. And when you look at all the things in your business today that fire off an automated email or add you to an email list, and to some extent that's become a little less personalized and dehumanized for a lot of people. And we thought, well, if I could tag my actual digital likeness, my video likeness, and use it in that same way, then every time someone purchases something from me or books an online appointment with me or adds their information into my website or my survey, that instead of just getting an email or getting a PDF sent to them, they get an actual video that's been personalized and delivered just to them. And that's, of course, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, right? Because it's still not a human, but it's closer. It's a little closer than just getting a text, even a personalized text message or email. And so that's how we like to see people using their likeness today.
That's great. And has there been any backlash that you've heard from, has any client of yours ever said, oh, one of my employees received this and was really upset that it's not me, or one of my vendors didn't like that, this wasn't me? Have you seen anything like that? Or, I imagine that it's been overall really positive, and I'd love to hear your take on that.
So we don't run into too many problems like that because we're very particular with how we onboard our clients, and we really want them to use their digital likeness in an ethical way. And I would say that probably at least 2/3, if not 3/4 of our clients will disclose that they are using an avatar in these communications. So it kind of offsets that issue where people feel like, oh, I was duped into seeing a digital likeness instead of the real person. I think that becomes less and less of a factor as they become more and more human-like, where people wouldn't really know or unless you told them. But early on, when they weren't perfect replicas, we really did coach everyone into saying, like, this is my likeness, so I can be coaching clients and doing more one-on-one work with you. The routine communications will come from my likeness. And so I think we've avoided some of those issues in that case. But every once in a while, we'll get someone who signs up for our service because they got a contract to produce lots of online courses, and they're going to do it with their avatar instead of their own human form. And there could be a little blowback with that because they were actually paid to show up in person. So I think we don't get the people, probably because of the way that we onboard them into our system, that are trying to do those types of things. But yeah, I think probably what we get more than anything is that if we haven't done a great job capturing someone's likeness, if their voice isn't exactly right, it's not that people are upset, it's that it's more funny. And we're really not in the business of making our clients seem funny in their likeness in most cases. I mean, unless they're a comedian. But so that's the thing. For us, we take that very seriously. We really do look at a digital likeness as a component, a tool in your toolbox, if you will, that really can speak and communicate on your behalf. And to that extent, we try to do it in a very ethical way and make sure that people are having fun with it, but that it does the job well.
Oh, definitely. I can imagine. And, I'd love, John, do you have an example of one of these, like, either it could be mess ups or something that happened in the beginning versus now? Because I'm sure, as you mentioned, they've evolved so much in the past few years since this has been a technology.
Yeah, so do you want me to show you an example?
Yeah,
Okay,
that would be great. Show us.
so I will tell you that because of the amount of clones that we've created, and because we've been doing it exclusively for 4 years, there are a lot of screw-ups from the early days. But I will say some of the things that didn't work well back then are not a problem any longer. So a couple things like you couldn't wear shiny jewelry anywhere near your face, or it would distort the lip sync on your mouth. And you couldn't wear reflective clothing and things like that that would cause some very unusual effects. Also, back in the day, the way footage was looped, if you didn't bring your hands back to a resting spot, the exact same spot, what it was called was ghosting, where your hands would kind of like disappear for a moment. And so that was like one of the tell signs back in the day that like you could always tell if it was an avatar with the way its hands came back together. But I will show you, probably for us, it's more just the state of the technology. And so I'll share something on my screen here for you. Excited to show you how a custom avatar like me can be used in your business. We've designed a process that makes the production of videos like this with motion graphics like. So this is avatar number one. I was the very first avatar. This was made back in April 2021. So it's now 4 years old. At the time, we were working exclusively with one provider that really specialized, not so much today, but back then specialized in stock avatars. And so we were one of the very first clients of theirs that was actually doing custom avatars. And this was the first one we had done. And I think, yeah, I'll play it for you because it's still not bad, but it's come a long way. So that is
Great.
very first one from a very long time ago, studio avatar. So it's very stiff. If you notice, I don't move. You're cropped up. Sorry about that. You're cropped very very high, and you didn't have any hand movement. You couldn't really animate too much in what you were doing. And so I flipped over here. I don't know if you're. Let me share this screen. So do you want to see today?
Yeah, let's see
Okay.
today to compare.
So,
That would be great.
and that one, the other thing you might notice with that too is that the voice was very tinny, if you will. Not a whole lot of animation, good quality video, but just very little movement. And then this is now, I think this is probably, 750 or so avatars later. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for having me on the executive room. I've enjoyed our conversations and look forward to continuing the discussion soon. Imagine using an avatar like this to prepare guests for their upcoming interviews and to follow up with a personalized thank you afterwards without you doing anything. Best of all, you can be up and running. So now you see kind of for us, the voice has more animation in it, more lifelike. Some voices are better than others, of course. But also just the style of how we capture them. Now you can capture them out in real environments. This is, whereas those other ones were called studio avatars, these are kind of coined as like instant avatars. So you can capture them anywhere with your phone, with your webcam. It doesn't require the same level of technical equipment to do it. And you can be moving, full body movement. So like on this campaign, I'm like out on the water, or I'm playing golf, I'm doing something in the outdoors, and you can see the amount of movement that you're allowed to do, and that really changes the effect quite a bit. And also, just having you in a natural background adds to the lifelike nature of this as well. So yeah, so that's kind of a now and then. They still have a little ways to go, but you can see how far it's come in just a short time there.
Incredible. And I really loved when you sent me this, John, because for me, it was something that, completely showed how this could be used in such a great way, because that could have been a simple email, but a link like that really stood out. And I loved that it was on the water, that you were moving. I was really impressed. I thought that was really, really cool, and love the befores and afters. I believe they're going to also get better and better. So from that, I'd love to hear, where do you think we're going as a society with avatars? And there's so many ways we could take this conversation. Just the other day, I personally saw an article of how people are using some sort of AI avatars to even give interviews So that was an issue. That was a point of this isn't really the person showing up. But I think there's so many different things that you've mentioned already and more. Where do you think we're going with all of this? And the
Yes,
good and bad side. I'd love to hear
yeah.
that.
Well, I think it's a great point, and it's one of my concerns with this being like our, life's work now, is that really you only hear about avatars when it's bad news. You rarely see, just this week you saw an article in the New York Times talking about how TikTok cloned some actors, paid them a one-time fee, and then gave their likeness away to advertisers to use with any script and promoting any product. And like that's just about the worst like article you could see when you're in the avatar, cloning business like this. So for me, I think that's the shame of this, is that people are really looking for the bad aspects of it. But it's like, go back to email marketing. In the very beginning, everyone was so worried about spam. That was all you ever worried about. They never focused on like the good results of being able to reach so many people with your content at scale. And so to me, when we work with clients, and the clients we're looking to work with are the ones that can really make a larger impact by leveraging, a brand, whether it's the CEO of a company, the founder of a company, a notable influencer or brand partner that can really get that message out in a personalized fashion to as many people as possible. We also look at situations where personalization matters, because if you could just send one video out to 10,000 people, well, and it still does the job, then that's great. But like in our case, where an avatar really adds value is when you need to personalize that message 10,000 times. And there's just no cost-effective, reasonable way you could do that with traditional video technology. So for us, like what we get excited about is we have clients who will promote certain things in their email newsletter, and they're able to monetize that newsletter further by selling their sponsors a personal endorsement capability. And that's something that when you send your newsletter out to 50,000 people, they click on a sponsors button, they go to the sponsors page, that's great, but what if 24 hours later they got a personalized endorsement from you telling them why you think that they should have this product or service? So when we do that with a client, you see their eyes light up and they're like, oh, this is why you have an avatar, because I could never do that. And now it gives me something new I can sell, a new revenue stream. So we love that. Like assessment providers are very big with us because they collect so much data that's very unique to the individual. And normally they're delivering the results of an assessment either in person, through Zoom, in some fashion that's either templated or very labor intensive. And what we try to do is kind of find that common ground where it can be a little less templated and zero labor, and give them a video response that's really unique to how they completed their assessment. So I think when we get into those spaces, you can start to see where there's going to be the good stories and the ways people are really actually making a big impact, and not just the scary stuff, which you're going to see that all the time. I think probably more so in the coming years.
Oh, definitely. And I'm really glad you shared that because I agree. Most of the things I've seen have been more of the negative side, and that's just a shame for the industry. I agree that I think it'll get more positive as time goes on, and those are amazing examples. And what would you like to share with CEOs and founders that they don't know about avatars? Like, if there was one thing you could share about their importance or about them in general, what would it be?
So I think that if you are a CEO, a notable executive, a founder of a company, I think your brand really matters. Your personal brand is important, and the more places that you can leverage that personal brand, the better. And let's face it, like today, people want it in video. They want everything in video. They want to listen to everything, watch everything, and they read less and less. And so what we look at this is, there was a time when, every CEO wanted to have, a book that in most cases was ghostwritten for them. but it became the calling card. Like instead of giving out your business card, you gave out your book, and it was like a symbol that I've accomplished something notable in my career, good enough that I could have a book. And it also served that other benefit of really showing what you care about, what you're passionate about. And today I feel like the version of that is people put out online courses, they put out podcast shows, they put content out, and that's become your calling card, and that becomes the way that you can really show what you're passionate about, what you care most about. And that's just hard to do for some people. You know, a lot of CEOs, they're either very busy or they just don't have time or the inclination to get on camera or on a microphone to do even an audio show. And so we look at this, and the message we try to get out to busy executives is, like, this is a very real option for you to be able to expand your personal brand, to be in more places, to share your message and your perspective with more people, even if you don't want to get in front of the camera all the time. And I think that's and yet at the same time, you have to understand this is still like very cutting edge technology. So you've got to go into it with that understanding that things aren't always perfect and it takes a little time to tweak it and get it right. And so, but now's the time to experiment with this. When everything's working perfectly, then everyone will have one, and then the novelty's not quite as good. So, so you got to take some chances and have fun with it. But I do think for the right type of executive, this is a really nice option to be able to do more with content.
I love that. And I know so many CEOs who would benefit from that, who, like you said, John, too busy, too many things going on, getting in studio to film videos or content. It's a really big ask. It's not always such an easy thing to ask, but getting everything ready for your avatar, having that ready, and then having another way that you can create these forms of content is a great way to continue with thought leadership. So I really love that you shared that example. And the other big topic I wanted us to talk about today are podcasts, because you've mentioned and we've seen you have so much experience producing podcasts for yourself and other thought leaders. And I'd love to hear, our audience or CEOs, executives who are looking to build their personal brands more. What are some of your top do's and don'ts when it comes to a CEO or an executive creating a podcast, and also when it comes to production?
Yeah, so I absolutely love podcasting. I started my first podcast show in 2016. It was relatively still kind of new for a lot of people. I think what was very new back then was business podcasts like we all do today that have become very, very commonplace. But back then, I started playing around with it. I started my show Learning Life in, I guess it was about 2018. We ran that for like 4 years, 200 episodes. I loved it because it's just a great way to meet people, to have great discussions, to engage with people as that being kind of the first way they get to meet you, whether they're listening or coming on as a guest. And it was a really great experience for me too, just learning how to interview. And then we went on to produce a number of shows. Today, our studio now probably produces about 10 or 12 ongoing podcast shows. And yes, I will tell you the do's and don'ts. I think the biggest challenge that our clients have always had is that they set out on a very ambitious, like, weekly podcast schedule, and then they can't keep up with that because generally the people we've always worked with are business owners, executives, people who've had success in one field or another, and they're building out a podcast show to like expand their network in that case. And you are busy, you have another job. The podcast generally, our clients, that our hosts had not really generally been people who made money off of their show. So it's got to fit into your life. And I always said, one, budget-wise, it's got to be cost-effective enough that it doesn't break the bank so you can continue to do it. Schedule-wise, don't go out and assume that you can do a weekly show if you can't keep up with the weekly show, because it's always easy to add episodes, but it feels really bad to go down to a monthly show. And just to let go a little bit. I think in the beginning, my problem was I micromanaged every edit, and it's just not sustainable. So it's a beautiful medium. People will accept whatever you put out as long as it's authentic. and be authentic, enjoy the process, get great, curious interviews from people, or just deliver great content and have fun with it. And I think one of the big things is just don't overthink the output too much, because just the nature of podcasting, you're just going to keep putting content out on a regular basis, and just people hearing you naturally speak is what's most important.
I love that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because, we also, at my agency, sometimes help people with podcasts, and it's one of the things that we like to encourage a lot of CEOs and founders to do. And how do you help people understand visibility and what is good, what is okay? How do you help them think about that? I think it would be great to hear your perspective for our audience, because one thing that I've always said to CEOs, founders, executives wanting to get into podcasts is that, you can't look at it like a LinkedIn post. A LinkedIn post could get 20,000 views easily, but your podcast, it'll probably have more of a niche audience. And sometimes I've seen that has made certain executives more hesitant, even if they have an amazing show idea, even if, their niche doesn't have any content. It's made them more hesitant because they've looked at it like, oh, this is a big mountain I have to climb, versus if I just, had no LinkedIn presence and start tomorrow, I could get a great following and views quickly. So how do you help people think about visibility, and what have you seen in the industry, especially as over the years we've seen more and more people have created podcasts? It has become a more saturated market than it was, when you started, for example.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing when you look at podcasting is that it should fit into an overall strategy. It's just one piece of the content that you're putting out there, and it serves a specific type of consumer of your content. It delivers a certain perspective of yours out there, and it's very different than what you might put out on social media. It might be the same perspectives, but the audience that you're reaching, the message or the way that you're delivering that message is different. And I think for a long time, I always said to people, like, don't expect this. It's not going to go viral. Podcast shows don't go viral. You can help them, catch a larger audience by promoting them on social and promoting them in different ways. But just the nature of how podcasts are consumed and how they're searched for and found, they don't do a great job of expanding your brand in a viral way. But what they do is they go very deep with the right vertical segment of your audience. And when you reach the people, and what I saw with my show, at the best it was doing, would get a few thousand downloads a month, which in the whole scheme of podcasting doesn't seem like very much, but most shows don't get, even a 1,000 downloads a month per episode. And so I think even if you just get a few hundred downloads of an episode, the people who are choosing to engage with those episodes and consume that content, they become your most loyal followers. They're the people that if you stop putting episodes out, they will text you, email you, and ask you why. And so I just think it belongs in an overall marketing strategy that's much bigger than just a podcast, but it gives that off-ramp to people who want to get to know you on a deeper level. And that's what I love about it. I don't think it solves every challenge people have, but it's certainly one piece of the puzzle.
I love hearing that, and I completely agree. So all of the listeners should know that I didn't think you were going to say that, but I do agree exactly what you said, and that's usually my advice as well. So that's great to hear it from another expert. And to wrap up, John, my last question: this podcast, as you know, is always about executive leadership, public persona, how to build your executive thought leadership brand. And a lot of what you shared today helps so much everybody listening, learn about their digital likeness, their avatars, how to create a great podcast. And to end, you also have an amazing personal brand. You have a great LinkedIn. What's your, final advice? What would you give to CEOs throughout industries looking to get started with their public presence, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I think, you know, I guess my feeling with this is that people get a little detached from, I guess you get to a certain level as an executive, as a CEO or founder of a company, where you kind of offload this to your marketing team and just let someone create that online presence for you. And it doesn't mean you have to do every piece of it yourself, of course, but I feel like it's important for whoever that CEO or founder is, that they have some real input about what their perspective is, what they want to be known for, much in like the way you would be very involved in the content you put out in a podcast show like this, that it's your brand, it's your likeness in one way or another that you're expanding out online. And I think it's easy to hand that off to someone in your marketing team and say, just, do a good job making me look, professional and appropriate online. But then it becomes a little too sanitized and a little, not personal enough to you. So I think for me, what's been important, and I look at this a lot with all of our stuff, is just that your perspective is unique to you and you're very authentic in consistently delivering that same perspective across all of your social media presence, your website, blogs, podcasts, whatever you might be doing. But people want a perspective and people want consistency and an authentic approach to how you share that. And so I think that comes across when you're a little bit more involved in it yourself. And if you're using an agency to do it for you or a marketing team, that you're still involved in the process and you make sure they know, like, these are the things I really care about. And when someone engages with me at that level, I want them to know truly who I am and what I care about. And and I think that even goes to how you comment and like on other people's stuff. Like everything you touch online, I've been more focused on commenting where I can really add value to people in my network who are sharing, because you do see people share really important things to them. And it's nice to be recognized. And when they align with your thinking, and you can even just think about commenting on other people's posts as part of the content that you're putting out there, I think that's important, and it comes across in everything you do online in one way or another.
I love that, and I completely agree. I personally 100% know when I'm looking on LinkedIn specifically if a CEO is involved or an executive is involved in their content or not. And it's 100% I agree. I think it's one of those things that, they need a team or they need people to help them, but that cannot be something that is like, here you go, and I'm not going to look at it, because people want to connect authentically, just like you said. And it's one of my personal pet peeves when I see it. I'm like, oh no, this person here, I know it's not them, and they need to
I
get
know.
involved. So I'm really glad you shared that.
Yeah, and it's getting even worse now with AI, because now you can just set it and forget it, and you see it. And I think what will end up happening is that the people who are truly writing, and yeah, you could use AI to help you draft a better post, but that the content's truly coming authentically from you. You're going to notice the stuff that was written by someone that really cares about their content, and something that was just mass generated by AI. And I think that'll become really obvious probably pretty soon, the more and more people are using those tools. And then it just becomes even more important to like share your authentic self online.
Completely agree. And I interacted with a CEO the other day who called it AI garbage content. He said when he goes on LinkedIn, he sees great content and then he scrolls through and in his mind says, oh, this is another, just regurgitated post of somebody who decided they wanted to be active but not actually to share anything. So I completely agree. I think in the future it'll be even more important to have that authentic voice, and really, really great thing to end on and for all of our listeners to think about. So thank you, John, for being on today. Thank you for everything you shared. Really, really cool, really helpful. We'll share in the notes everywhere that the podcast is, where to find more out about the digital likeness and avatars. And until next time.